Good morning, Muscatine. It is Thursday, the 16th. Means we're about 14 full days away from Jingle and Mingle. Get ready. Santa Claus is coming to town, so is Olaf, Anna, Elsa, the Grinch, a whole bunch of characters thanks to Accenture and Heinz. Got a couple of our friends hanging out here with us. Next Friday, not next Friday, a week from next Friday, December 1st, 5:30 to 8 o'clock down here, downtown. 5:30 we'll light up the Christmas tree over at Midwest One. You can get your pictures taken with Santa. You can have hot chocolate. There's gonna be tons of snacks and candy, tons of live entertainment. MPW will be here with a crazy lit up truck. There may or may not be a 20 plus foot tall Santa Claus floating around. Who knows? You'll just have to come see. So make sure you follow it on Facebook, and we'll make sure that all the stuff's out there. We've got tons of great stuff from some of the downtown businesses like the Merrill Soap Shop. So it'll be an absolutely tremendous time as always. We also have something big to do this morning. As you guys know, if you follow us on social media, we've got 4 tickets to tonight's Kansas State Iowa Hawkeye women's basketball game. These things have been sold out for I don't know how long. So 4 tickets, crazy. We had over 420 entries. So Chris, could you bring up the wheel and we'll give them away here real quick. We'll reach out to the winner via email, social media here shortly. And I will say this, if for some reason the person that wins is not able to go or use the tickets, we'll do another quick spin and contact that person as soon as possible. So Chris, is it up? Are we ready? Okay, 420-ish. Let's see who it's gonna be. And Donna Eichelberger is gonna be going to the game tonight. Absolutely tremendous. So glad that we were able to do this. You know, that women's basketball team up there and Caitlin Clark, you need to find a way to get to a game. If you don't, you will regret it. You'll always say, I wish I would have seen her play in person. I know I say that about MJ, never actually made it happen. And whoa, hey, no, we're not spinning again. Whoa, we don't need to spin again. We're good. So my next guest, or actually really our only guest for today, is kind of a neat thing. We were able to sit down a couple of weekends ago and do an interview. Adam Means has been a friend of mine since 2nd grade, Edwin Colon since middle school, and we've been working on a project together. Adam really started working on it about 1.5 years ago, brought us in. And it's just a tremendous story that comes out of COVID, and you know, being able to follow your passion, his podcast that he started, along with the actual projects that he's working on. Tremendous story about grit and determination, and just following what lights your fancy, right? So we'll do a quick commercial break. We'll be back with that interview. And absolutely enjoy it. You'll be able to tell it's 3 friends that have known each other for a long time, I hope, and hear a really cool story. You've probably seen us sharing out the Lost Treasures podcast. That's the podcast for the project. So make sure you stay tuned for that, and we'll see you on Monday. After you still watch the interview. So about 35 years ago, you wouldn't believe it, because I know I don't look that old. About 35 years ago, this skinny, I don't even know how to describe your hair back then. It was a lot. Bounces into Mrs. Wargo's 2nd grade classroom, and it sort of it changed. I'm going to say it changed our lives. That's a little overly dramatic, but so our next guest, both of them I've known for too many years for us to publicly count. So I've got Adam Means and Edwin Colon here with me, and we've been able to be part of something fun. I don't even know how to describe it other than that at the moment. For the last year and a half?
Yep,
Year and a half?
About 16 months.
Yeah. So if you guys would introduce yourselves real quick for those that may not know you, and then we're going to talk about what you've got going on. It's quite a bit of cool stuff.
Cool. My name's Adam Means. Like you're saying, I lived here second grade to like freshman year of college. Graduated Muscatine High School in 1997 with you two guys.
No, don't disclose that stuff. We're old. You got to stop doing that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Dude.
Everybody knows now. So, but yeah, so you guys have been a big part of my life for a long time now. So,
And my name is Edwin Colon, and I currently work in the school district here as a school counselor, owner of Fighting Chance Solutions. This has been my hometown since, well, I've been here my whole entire life. You know, departed for college for a bit, but then came back. So
yeah, we had kind of the same arc.
yeah.
Well, I mean, we all played baseball. I mean, you two were on the same team in what, 4th, 5th, 6th grade?
Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, it goes way back. So Adam, let's, if you would, give people a little bit of idea of what Lost Treasures is, your new project.
Yeah. So probably about, it was about a year and a month. We started a podcast called Lost Treasures about what I've been doing out in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so it's kind of been this, it started off with me, and then it kind of evolved where John Scheel, my media and entertainment guy, is my co-host. And I had you guys actually get to come out for one of the big things we did this May, which not a lot of people have seen, but we've talked about pretty frequently.
Yeah, so let's kind of talk about that, and let's talk about how you ended up back in Ohio and on this little journey. So a lot of people may know you personal training days. Kind of how did you end up back out in Ohio?
Yeah, that's a great question. Kind of a whole bunch of things happened at once, but from the start of the pandemic, I had lost a good bit, I lost all of my personal training clientele. And so kind of how the beginning of my story started was like, I just really started looking into really old things. And so from that, I just trying to create something where I could actually look around and find stuff. And that's kind of what I've done.
And that's what's been fun about this. So of course, you call us, as you start kind of reading through stuff, and you're like, I think maybe we could go look for some stuff. I'm going to go look for some stuff. And, I'll be honest, I remember the first time, like, you called, I'm like, okay. It was like a Sunday afternoon, and I'm like, well,
yeah.
And, because it's not, I think we've only ever talked about basketball. I mean, like
a lot of computer stuff.
But, it wasn't kind of this conversation of like, hey, I've really been into like old community histories and just, like trying to find out what's real out of all this old history.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And
that's exactly right.
What all of a sudden dawned on me, and I remember this is, it's like our own personal version of Josh Gates.
Yeah.
Or, those guys who, they do these great jobs of telling stories that don't get heard often and bringing them to the present day and making them viable and entertaining for people today.
Yeah.
And that's really where you've ended up going.
Yeah. And the podcast was, kind of out of necessity for a little bit of documentation, but also, we're not just talking about the stuff that I'm doing, because it comes in phases, but we're talking about other stuff that's been found and what people are doing. And hopefully we expand that too.
Yeah. So one thing that's kind of cool. So, there's, again, these two big parts of what you've been doing, right? There's let's call it the search side, right? And, there's quite a bit of it we can't actually talk about yet. But talking about how you ended up here. So there's a city involved, there's, all this other stuff. The process is amazing. It's like real life, we all think like, oh, you find something, think you have an idea, you just go dig it up and move on, like it happens in Indiana Jones.
No way. Doesn't happen like that.
Not even a
not
little
even
bit
close.
So like what did what did that all look like?
Multiple lawyers, permits, communications that it could happen in a week or it could happen in a month. And so you don't really know. And I try to kind of focus my mind on different things as this process has been ongoing. But it's a lot of people involved, including you two guys too.
Well, and what's kind of crazy, and Edwin, you could probably speak to this a little bit, because like we help Adam remotely, and we've gone out there a couple times, and you know, when you sit here and think about the fact that every time, and this happens all across the country all the time, but when you think you find something, you have to have lots of conversations about who owns it, what is it, what's going to happen, depending on what's down there, where does it go? Does it go into a museum? Obviously, that's the preference, right? You know, and so like, who all has to be involved, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
And the kicker is, on some levels, you don't even know what's down there or if there is anything, right? And so this is one of the cooler experiences that I've taken out of this is, talk to us a little bit. And Edwin, I'd love to hear your thoughts on uh, what it was like to watch the ground penetrating radar go through. Because, you know, for Adam, this is like, you know, he's been learning about it. He's, you know, kind of dove in and been that. But like, we're still kind of like the layman's out here, kind of like putting all the pieces together, like big picture. And so, like, well, first, real quick, tell us what ground penetrating radar is and like what it can actually do.
Can pretty much identify cavities below ground or objects, right? And so that was part of another confirmation, but something that the city required so that we could go to the next step. And so that big part, which, you know, I discussed on the podcast quite often, was like one of the biggest pieces to this whole thing.
What do you think when they were lugging that thing up into the...
I had no clue in regards to what GPR was until, you know, Adam had informed me about it, and then I started doing my own research in regards to that, you know. But seeing the whole process, you know, take shape was a pretty cool experience, you know, because I don't think there's a lot of people that are going to be able to actually go out and witness something like that for themselves. So for me, I thought it was pretty cool, you know, because those are things you kind of, you dream about doing maybe, you know, and then you see it actually happening for the reasons that why it's happening. It's a cool experience.
Yeah, and what I thought was really neat as we did this was it's taking, I mean, honestly, in a lot of ways, it's like what you see in the movies, right? Where, and I hate to use this because it seems so cliche, but like the National Treasure movies, okay? They see these clues and they see whatever, and then they translate it into the real world. And that's essentially what you did. I mean, obviously, it's not a script, and it's not, you know, there hasn't been any bad guys chasing you that we know of.
Not yet.
That we know of, right?
Yeah.
Well, we've been preventing it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Covering our trails everywhere we go. No, but I mean, it's that same kind of a thing. You know, you took kind of some stuff you read. I'm like, oh, well, that could be this, that could be this, and sure enough, here we are. But and that's, I still, when we, so like, I think we can talk about this. If not, we're going to anyway. You know, like, let's say there's a hill, right? And, you know, let's say that there's a bunch of trees on a hill. Ground penetrating radar is like almost like a baby stroller sort of a thing, right? And if you watch the promos for Lost Treasures and stuff, you'll see some of this stuff, and we can run it out too. But you know, you don't think about like if you have to do that in the woods, somebody's got to like clear it.
Oh yeah.
So that's why we took Edwin.
Yeah, he actually did all the work. Actually, I was out on the top of the hill already, and he was helping to move it up the ground penetrating radar to the top.
But going back to that, you know, you figure it's just going to be a scan and that's it. You know, they got to be able to mark. They flag everything, the area that they're doing, and it's basically they're grading everything out.
Yep.
You know, and it's interesting because they got to go one way and then they got to go, you know, the other way. And it's like, okay, now I see how this is really a process that, I mean, they're reading underground, right?
Right.
So,
Well, and what's cool, so obviously you've been working with an archaeology company throughout this whole process. And Cinder and her team have been a tremendous help, you know, translating, you know, the real world stuff that you've been doing into the more academic, scientific world. And they're kind of like this nice little translation piece. And they've been a tremendous, tremendous help through the whole process. And so it was their team that was out there doing the GPR. and they were jumping right in. Like there's machetes flying around trying to like clear stuff
area,
out.
yep, yep.
There's a great little clip we've got of their GPR guy, like literally for about 5 minutes, just whack, 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 because that's what it takes to get the job done.
Oh yeah,
It's not like,
couldn't get in there without doing that.
Well, and when I think of this sort of stuff, like archaeological digs, I always think of like Egypt, and I think, this big open area, and you've got tons of room, and you just kind of methodically go through it. I don't think about it in the middle of a Midwestern forest, right? And how much tougher that really is.
And they're pretty much their primary purpose is historical archaeology.
Right.
And so that's kind of why. And I'd looked out, and I kind of mentioned this in my podcast too. I'd reached out to some other people, but she's the one who took it up to, give me a quote and keep going through it.
Yeah, and the other thing that's crazy about this is like there's costs associated with finding stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right. Because you can't just go dig. You've got National Archive functions. So there's a whole bunch of upfront loaded costs that you just sort of stomach.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the property owner city that we're working with, obviously, you got to get permission, you got to do this whole thing, you run through permits, you run through all this other stuff, and at the end of the day, it's still just 2 feet down, 4 feet down, and you think you could just go dig, but
no. I thought, that was probably one of the smartest things that I did was just reaching out, trying to figure out the laws, but also trying to find somebody who knew those things much better than I did. And that's where, Shane and John, both my lawyers, come into play.
Yeah. And as you sit there and look at this, how do you sit and go, all right, Friday, I'm teaching kids. And then Saturday, I think we were actually in Ohio on a Friday, but, we're sitting out there and we're looking at stuff coming up from the ground, like turquoise. We're looking at this other stuff that we even talked about, like, this is stuff kids see in class. And like you talk about finding stuff like that. How has it as an educator been for you to see like this real life history stuff come out?
I think it's exciting for me and be able to relay that information to kids because, we talk about careers all the time. And I tell kids that they can be whatever they put their mind to. I'm not the type of person that's going to say that if I don't mean it. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the whole archaeological field, there's endless opportunities out there for kids if they want to go and do that type of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, I think it's been huge because you see this whole nother world out there. Even talking to the guy that was, running the GPR and some of the stuff that he's encountered, it's like, wow. This is his day-to-day job,
right?
And it's cool, and it seems fun because you're never locked into one area at one time.
It's always different.
Yeah, they're going all across the country, and they're going everywhere in different projects.
He came from Rhode Island to do that, so he drove like 13 hours.
Yeah.
So no thanks on that.
Yeah, I'll pass. Yeah, I'm like, if it's outside Muscatine, I'm out. Yeah, well, so I mean, but that's like. So what really intrigued me about this, and we started talking about this very early on, was regardless of what's in the ground, whether there's something there, nothing there, who knows, right? Regardless, it's a fun story. It's been, and so I'm like, okay, we've got to start documenting this, right? Like, again, whether there's something there or not. So I don't even remember what day of the week it was. I left here in Muscatine at like 2. No, it was like 2 because it's like a 7-hour drive. I rolled into Cincinnati around 9.
Yeah.
You guys are already there.
Oh yeah, you left super early. That's right.
And then we filmed that day while they were doing the GPR, came back the next morning, did some stuff, some more footage, and then I hightailed it back here, right? But we got such amazing footage, like just seeing it actually happening.
Yeah.
And it's going to help tell this story. We had mics on you guys the whole time, and luckily I was running the camera, so I didn't have to be on it. Edwin, I'll tell you this, watch as we start releasing some of this stuff, watch Edwin, man. His face, I think you have the most articulate, expressive face of just about anybody.
I've heard that before.
It is. I mean, like, he's like
Sure,
watching,
yeah.
he's like, we're like in the woods, whatever. And like, all of a sudden there's like an extra branch, and like you could just see the exasperation on your face. It's just awesome. So obviously that's about all that we can really talk about on the search side. As things happen and progress, obviously we'll be able to talk more. But the podcast side has actually been really interesting. You coincidentally, one of the attorneys you hired out there does podcast producing on the side.
Yep.
And he's like, okay, yeah, this is a good idea. And what's cool is like, you guys kind of record it out there. He'll kind of do an initial cut. You'll kind of send it over to me and Edwin. We'll listen to it because I don't necessarily have the time to do it, and I'm not there with you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it's been like this great, across the region collaboration to start getting this thing out. And it launched about a month and a half ago.
October 1st was our first.
Yep, we got 5 episodes out.
5.
You can get it anywhere you get podcasts: Spotify, Apple, Google.
Yep.
You name it, it's there. We've got them on discovermuscatine.com as well. We'll make sure we've got that link out there. So you can download them, listen, and kind of hear the story. And again, I think what's really cool is, I think it was the second episode of the podcast, maybe, you had the Cincinnati historian on.
Yeah.
Tell us about that a little bit.
Greg Hand. Oh, he's, just full of facts. And it was great to have somebody that has lived there and been there for such a long time. And all he did was really just compile a bunch of articles about old stories. And so that was our longest episode. I think it was like 49 minutes. And he talked about all the stuff that he's been kind of following over the years. So it was really neat. It just gives you, my whole thing with that was like, let's give a different perspective, but also let's just show the potential for stuff that's there.
Well, and what's great is, as the podcast is launched, there's been like other situations like this where you can talk to them about what they're going through. You did like an episode on metal detectors and like how you actually kind of use it and what you can actually find with it, and what the process is and getting permits. And it's really entertaining from a exposure to something you don't ever see. Like, you never see this side of stuff.
No.
You see Indiana Jones on one side, which I did say that we're going to get you fedora.
Yeah, that's fine.
Whatever.
John keeps saying that too. So
I think we might have to like do it in red and black and put a swoosh on it.
I don't care.
Yeah,
that's fine.
But it's kind of one of those things where like you see that side. Mm-hmm. No, they never show the real work of it.
The endless
the paperwork
stream of paperwork and all that.
I keep thinking this. Let's just go dig it up.
Yeah, everybody said that from the very beginning.
Just go do it. Like,
it's fine.
No, can't do it. No. Patience is a crazy thing.
It is. I mean, that's the thing.
We talk about it all the time.
That he's probably learned the most. When you think about this, has been a year and a half process as of now. Mm-hmm. I mean, things just don't happen because you want it to happen. No. It's not in your control anymore. Right. It's in the control of the other people making those decisions on whether or not they're going to say we're going to continue or not.
Yep.
Right. So that's been pretty cool, and it's been a learning experience as well. Because then you wonder why how come people haven't really done this ever? Like, how come there's not people out there doing this all the time?
This has been a pain in the butt.
Yes.
100%. I would use much more colorful language.
100%.
Nobody has a clue about all the steps that you really have to go. And we talk about it, but like there's so many things in between that.
Well, and each one, there's gatekeepers in each one of them. And, if that gatekeeper isn't intrigued or give a flying rat's about what you're doing, you can get locked up real quick until you figure out how to go around them. And,
and I think that's, you got to navigate with open mind too, because, in society nowadays, we're so narrow-minded that there's a possibility, right? Be open-minded with it.
Well, and that's, something we've talked about is like where this all goes from here, and I think the most interesting thing that we've all kind of come up with, and we all kind of came up with this like individually together, and it all sort of merged, but like this concept of reaching out to communities and see if there's anything out there that they maybe there's something, and then dive in, do the history, get those stories all archived together, and go see what's out there. And, with the experience of knowing how to navigate the field, how you can help bring a community together by telling these stories.
Oh, and the knowledge of the process now, I mean, that was one of the biggest things, right? So now we know the steps. So if we want to recreate this again, it shouldn't be that hard. But it was, it's still a learning process, but we're very close to the end of this now.
Yeah, and I always think about like the mindsets of the people that, we encounter throughout this process. And like one of the craziest things is like meeting and talking with the archaeologists. You would on spec think, oh, you know what? They'd be the ones wanting to run out there and go do it right away because you think they're all Indiana Jones, right? They're the most conservative, which is good, right?
Yeah.
Because it's their job to make sure nothing happens to it,
Right.
right? So that's where I think the potential for a group kind of like us, where we're more risk takers, we're more, well, you know what, let's go. You know what, if we don't find something, fine. We're still going to have a cool story to tell, right? Where we can go, like, do some of those initial steps, get some fun stuff, then bring the archaeologists in and let them do their
job.
Yep.
That's what they're hired to do.
Yeah. So what do you think's been the most exhilarating thing for you through this process?
I mean, for me, I'll just go back to like science confirmations with the GPR, and I was looking for one cavity and I found 3. So that was like one of the biggest things, that and just being able to get to the next step. So as soon as you get that little bit of confirmation, right, it builds that excitement, and then you kind of stall out a little bit, then it happens again. And so I think that was like one of the coolest things. And me and Edwin talk about this too, like things just happen, you just don't expect them all the time.
So what for you, Edwin, what do you think was the most exhilarating part of this? I mean, besides carrying the GPR up the hill.
No, I think seeing the whole process, just take shape and just seeing how it goes, and from the beginning to where we're at now, or where Adam's at a year and a half later, how much patience you have to have, right? And I think through it all, I mean, you really start to see what the true meaning of a friendship is, right? Like that support. Again, there's a lot of people out there that naysayers or whatever they want to be, but what's wrong with supporting a friend and saying, you know what, there's possibilities, right? I think, again, we all have dreams, right? And I tell our kids to dream big. Adults should dream big too, right? And for me to be supportive, just to support him and see him chase something. Because if you don't know Adam, Adam is probably one of the most hardworking people, go-getters. Yep. When he came up to me in high school saying that he was going to dunk a ball, in basketball.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not stand up. I'm not.
Stand up real quick. So this is the thing you got to remember. Okay, he's literally, actually, I think you're shorter than me now.
Probably.
But he probably knows this. I mean, I didn't doubt him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because right. You know what? But the thing is that there were people out there that doubted it.
Yeah.
But what I'm ultimately saying is that just be supportive. You know what? Yep. Be happy for somebody who is chasing something that, could allow them to be successful. I think we need more of that in this world.
Absolutely.
Instead of people just hating on each other.
Well, and I think mine actually kind of correlates with yours because, most people in town are, going to laugh when they hear me say that this is what my role is. But I'm the grounded guy in this group. Like, I'm the one that goes, okay, well, how do we make this work if there's nothing there, right? Because we can, right? Totally. But we just have to be paying attention to it, right? And that's where the ideas of like the podcast and doing all these other things come in. Is like, I same thing. Like, if you can go chase your dream, have fun, and earn some sort of living while you're at it, check all the boxes. Yeah. I'm in, right? And
be able to hang out with your friends you've known for like 30 years.
Exactly. And so that was kind of my thing, was like, okay, let's see, there's two kind of extremes here. One, you dig up the thing and there's literally the national treasure with billions of dollars of stuff in it. Okay. Let's say probably not that. Okay. And then it could also literally it could actually be worse than nothing, folks. There's, I'll never forget the Shane, the guy, or Seth, the GPR guy. He was kind of explaining to us like how they can tell the difference and like how the soil's loose and all this other stuff. And he goes, it could be that somebody dug a hole to use as a bathroom. And now there's metal, like it's not, but like it could literally be you dig it up and there's like that. And so my whole thing was like, all right, if I can help put the baseline, like put that safety net in there, right? So that there's the ability to swing for the home run, but still know that you're not going to strike out, right? And that's what I thought was really cool about this, especially having your support through this, Edwin, is like we can do those little things that let you go swing for the fences, right? And and yeah, there's times I know you've been like, dude, you're not. I'm like, but that's what we're for. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we've known each other for 150 years,
Yeah.
and you know that when I'm doing it, that's exactly why I'm doing it, right? And so it's cool to have that kind of outlet and like that dynamic, right? So for me, that's what it's been. It's
Yeah.
just watching you be able to go do it and be able to just do. I mean, honestly, it's like the stuff that we do for all our clients, right? Like just put those things in place where you can do what you need and have that like that backdrop. So it's been fun. I'm so glad that I've been able to do it, and like it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been a fun process, been a long process, been
Yeah.
exciting. And I think that the real fun's probably going to be coming here soon. So, I think it's going to be interesting to see what Seth discovered. Well, what Adam discovered, but what Seth,
Right.
what Seth,
what they found in
The Gray and Babe found.
yeah.
yeah, and what I'm looking forward to is like it's kind of hard to go start on other projects until this first one sort of gets buttoned up a little bit more.
I've already been told not to do all that. So Shane and John said no. So you got to get this done before
we
you
got to
move on
get
to
it like
anything else.
yep. But then eventually once we kind of get sea legs under us, you can have several working at a time, and I think that's where the real fun starts. That's where I think you can tie in the communities and you can get a lot of people involved, and because who doesn't like hearing about their history, their community's history? It's the Susan Clark stories here. It's the the Mussers. It's the Bates. It's all those things that everybody in Muscatine knows versions of these stories, right? And how cool would it be to have somebody come in and actually like confirm that stuff and really pull it all together? Because not a lot of communities have that.
I think there's a lot of those stories though all over the place. You just gotta kind of be
Oh,
familiar with the area.
and I think that's another part that really has been fun is to because Adam really loves history, and
I do now.
things like
Put it
that.
that
But hearing things that he tells me, then I look it up and it's like, oh yeah, that is actually that's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny, and again, for those of you that don't know Adam super well, if you would have known him high school, history probably wouldn't have been what.
Not even on the top 5.
But again, what's cool is it's something that like piqued your interest because you had time during the pandemic.
Yep.
And you just started following it. And that's what you've always done. Like you've seen something, you've wanted it, you go get it. And that's what's fun about watching all this.
Thank you.
So, holy cow.
But that's Adam in a nutshell, though,
It is.
because there's so many people out there that are too worried about what other people are going to think. If you have a passion and whatever, go do it. You're not going to live comfortable in this life worrying about what other people are going to think
Exactly
about you.
right.
Unless
I
you're
never
happy with
was
who you
worried
are.
about it.
And if you're passionate about that, then go do that.
Yep. That's exactly right.
So.
I think the one thing that I love in watching you do this is that I always think about if I ran into a wall doing what I'm doing, I want to run into it so hard that I had a chance of making it through. And what I always think of when I look at like obstacles along the way, I know that when you run into them, there's just going to be an atom-sized hole in the wall.
Yep,
right?
exactly.
And that's what's fun to watch. So
I think the obstacles make the story a little bit better too. But I think a lot of the things through my life have led up to this little thing that's going on.
So what's next?
Well, honestly, we, couple 2 weeks ago, I think, pretty big step that we can't necessarily talk about right now. But at the same time, I'm just continuing until we're at that final place where, it's time to dig some stuff up. So, but we're close. We're a lot closer than we were 2 months ago. So.
Yeah. Edwin, any parting shots?
No, I think it's going to be it's going to be exciting, I mean, like Adam said, it's a lot closer now to actually see the end, and that's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
But I think there's endless opportunities regardless with what Adam has been able to do here the last year and a half, because it's definitely piqued my interest, and you're starting to see, you start reading things or researching things, there's people finding stuff throughout this country And even in Europe, a lot more, it seems to be more common than it had been in the past for whatever reason. So,
Well, I think some of it, when you look at the technology that exists out there now for like, 'cause if you think about it, even 20 years ago, you had a pretty basic metal detector. And if you thought, I mean, like you literally have to go dig wherever you wanted to know if there was something. But between the better metal detectors, the ground penetrating radar,
LiDAR.
the LiDAR, and like all that stuff, you can way more effectively look for stuff.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
yeah.
It's more efficient. Let's put it that way.
Way
Yeah.
more. So
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's definitely going to be exciting.
well,
Looking forward to it.
so am I. I'm looking forward to what comes next, and we'll continue to document it. We'll make sure that Lost Treasures continues to be floating around on Discover Muscatine, so that everybody in town can keep up. And
Appreciate it.
it's
awesome.
It's been a blast. So, with that, don't forget, go attack the rest of the day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. Have a good one.